Welcome back. We are going to continue on with our setup sessions here. This one we're going to cover setting up the vendor, the invoice, and the sales tax, and see if we can wrap up the setup section for you. So to set up vendors, we're going to go to expenses. We're going to go to vendors. Now this is going to be a list of all your vendors that you do business with, and you can set this up in a variety of different ways. So first and foremost, you can select new vendor. Now again, we're just going to go through the information. This would be the contact name. This would be the company name. So let's just see here. Let's just use Lowe's. And then if you have an address for Lowe's, great. Any notes that you want to put in here, an email for the vendor, phone number, website, any pertinent information, the more the better. The terms, now Lowe's, unless you have an account with them, now this is not going to be like a Lowe's credit card. This is going to be the vendor itself. If you set up a Lowe's credit card, you want to set them up as a credit card because it's separate from this. This is just the vendor itself. So you're not really going to have terms here because Lowe's really doesn't let you purchase on account unless you're using a credit card. So you guess you can put due upon receipt, but really these should just be transactions that have already occurred. There will be no opening balance. I would recommend never putting an open balance in any of the setup stuff, whether it's tenants or whether it's vendors, anywhere. Never put an open balance in. Account number, if that is applicable, or their business ID number is going to be their tax ID number. Now, if this is going to be a 1099 vendor, which means a vendor that's not a corporation that you pay more than $600 in the course of the year. A lot of times this may be a painter, this may be a carpet cleaner, maybe a handyman, something along those lines. You put their tax ID number, and we're going to want to track the payments for 1099 because at the end of the year, we're going to have a responsibility to send out those 1099s, and this is where that's going to happen. Now, this default expense account is going to be an expense account that pops up every time you enter a bill for this vendor. So if it's a drain cleaning company, for example, great. Just one less piece of information that you have to enter when the time comes. You can just set that as your default expense account and then save. And that's going to add this vendor to your list. Now, when you go to create an expense, whether it's a bill or an expense, it'd be like a credit card transaction, they will now be in. And all their information will pop up. Again, I didn't fill these out very good. Should be mailing address, terms. You would put your bill number here, but again, you can see that this pops up with the default category. Doesn't mean you can't change it, but that's the default category. A lot of times carpet cleaners, drain cleaners, cleaning companies, all have the default company set up. So that is how that kind of plays into the vendor. Now, let's say that you're in a vendor bill and you've never used them before. It'll pop up. And you can add it right from here. Just hit this button, add ABC carpet cleaning. If you just hit save, that's all you're going to have is a vendor with just a name. What I would recommend is that you add the details here and go through and put all that information in as much as possible. But if you do not do that, and a lot of times if it's Home Depot or Lowe's, that, big box corporate stores that I know that I'm not going to have 1099s for. I mean, this may be all I do because really all I'm trying to do is record the expense here. So yeah, you can set the vendor up from that particular vantage point as well. Now, setting up the vendor is going to be important because that is, if you receive bills and pay them later, you're going to need to know who to pay. Setting them up completely is going to be helpful because you're going to want a mailing address on there so you can print your checks. Last thing you want to do is have a bunch of vendors that you have invoices for. You're trying to pay them out of the QuickBooks system and they're not set up completely, and you have to go back in and edit all those vendors because if you set it up right, the vendor information along with the mailing address and everything will print on the check. You can just slap it in a window or envelope and off it goes. So it makes things really quick later on down the road. And then, of course, when we get into the reporting side of this, this is also going to show who you owe. So there's your vendors right there. Okay, let's move on, and I want to talk about setting up the tenant rent invoice. Now, again, we are going to, within QuickBooks, we have to set up we want to set up a rent invoice so that we can charge the tenant account, and it provides a means for us to accept payments to that account. So when you create an invoice and you send it off to the tenant, and then you receive a payment, you can apply it to that invoice, which is how we get money into the system. In order to do that, of course, you have your invoice, but we want to customize this invoice to make it look more like a rent invoice. If you just use the standard invoice from QuickBooks, it's going to be a customer invoice, and it's going to look like a bill. And this ultimately is a bill, but we kind of want to make this look more in line with what we do in our business, which is rent, collect rent. We bill rent and we collect rent. So in order to do that, we are going to customize our invoice. So go to your gear icon, go to your account settings, and then we are going to click sales, and then we're going to circle back to this customize that we looked at briefly before. Now this is going to be your standard invoice, and you can add a completely new one. For me, all I did was I just edited the master form, because for this particular deal, I'm not going to be invoicing other people. I'm not doing other work. The only time I'm going to be billing anything out or invoicing anything out is when it's rent. So this is the design area, and there's a lot of different things you can do here. So they have some standard templates in here, and you can go in here and you can pick any template that is attractive to you. I use the fresh, but there's a series of options here. If you want to upload a logo, if you have a logo, great. If not, you don't have to put a logo in there, and you can alter the size. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can change the location of it. I have some themed colors for our company, so I went in and I found the code, the color code, and I plopped that in there, and that is our company colors, so it makes it nice and consistent with what we're doing. But you can choose any colors here. Let's see. I mean, whatever you want to change this to. You can select a different font style and a different font size if you would like. Looks like there's within limits there. Let's see here, and then you can set your margins as well. If you use letterhead, you have the option to do that, and then you can also select your fit printed form. If you change your margins, it looks like you have some window envelope options that you can mess with. Now on the content, you could go in here and edit certain things. So here, before, I believe it said customer invoice, and what I did was I went in and I changed, yeah, there it is, the invoice, I changed it to rental invoice. And then if you have different names or estimates or so forth, you can change the name of the form itself. Here's your business name, your phone number, the display email address is another place you can change that. And you have all of these options to edit this particular form. And then you can display what's shipped. I like to leave the terms on there. Or you can display what's on there, like your shipping, billing address, terms. I don't really use the shipping, but I do use terms. I like that, and the due date or expiration date. So it'll show how that plays out. And in emails, it's going to show you how this looks to the customer, and you can kind of customize what your email notification is. So, and you can actually change the type of sales form here. But in your invoice, within the emails, you want full details, you want them summarized. I like to attach a PDF. The standard email, I'm going to select my invoice here, but this is what this looks like here. So I changed the subject line within the email that they're going to get for the rent their rent invoices to say monthly rental invoice from Sage Street. And I changed the message just a little bit so it's a little more in line with what we do here. And this is what it's going to look like to the customer. Now again, if you have your online merchant account set up, a button will be here that says pay now, and they can click it and pay right from their email, or they can print it or save this, and then they can pay from that invoice as well. But this is an example of what gives the full details. If they summarize it, it just says, hey, you owe this much money, which I kind of like that better myself. And then this is where you can edit what those reminder emails say. So again, I just use the greeting, dear, their full name, which will be pulled off of their customer profile, and then put in some verbiage here saying, just a reminder, we've not received a payment for this invoice yet. Let us know if you have any questions. Thank you for your business. Sage Street. LLC. And then when you're done, just hit done, and everything will update. So that is how we get our invoices looking more in line with our business model. And let's see here. Let's just preview this. And that's what it would look like. So again, it's our logo, rental invoice, due upon receipt. There's your due date, what's it for, your property, your description for January 2020, and the total amount of rent that's due. That's what they would see. Bill to Jim Stanton, here's our information, so everything is in line. Okay, the last thing in the setup section that I want to discuss with you folks is taxes. Now, this isn't going to apply to everybody. There are certain cities, states, jurisdictions that require landlords to withhold sales tax on rental income. And if that is you, then this section will apply for you. If not, then you can go on and skip through this last section here, because that's all we're going to be talking about for the rest of this video, is setting up the sales tax. So to do this, you come over to your tax tab, and you're just going to click Set Up Sales Tax. And what this is going to do is it's going to use your business information that you already have set up to locate the tax-paying agencies that you're going to be responsible for. So I verified this is the address. If not, I can change it here. And I would say this would be, if this is your business address, but if your properties fall outside of this county or whatever else, maybe it's in a whole different state, you need to make sure that you have the right addresses, because your sales tax is going to be based, I believe, on where your property is located at. So we want to hit next. And this is going to tell us more about your taxes. And again, this would be if you have multiple properties in multiple jurisdictions. This is going to give you the option to select yes. Do you need to collect sales tax outside of Georgia? Yes, no. In my case, I'll just say no. And then and it tells you are with the Georgia Department of Revenue. So select next. And it sets it up, and everything's good to go. That setup is as simple as that. That's just an invoice. And then I went to an invoice, but if you don't go to the invoice, this will be the next form that you see here. So you're going to select your filing frequency. And if you're already set up with the Georgia Department of Revenue, you're going to know this information. So let's just say it's monthly. Actually, with Georgia, it actually gives you the information what it's going to be. So let's see here. Monthly is not permitted at all, so we have to select quarterly. Good to know. So we hit save. So that's nice because it gives you real-time updated information. So now, let's just go back to the sales tax screen. I think that's where we're at. Yep. So now what we're doing here is when you create an invoice, what this will do is it will automatically have your tax rate based on your location. It'll apply whatever percentage rate it is. It'll include your tax here, and then your total balance due is going to be $16.28. So when this person makes a payment, and the payments applied to this invoice, it is going to take $133 and it's going to set that aside for you to turn around and pay that to the state. That's how it kind of operates into your deal. And hopefully you don't have to collect sales tax. It's just kind of a headache more than anything, but some of us have to do that, and it is what it is. Okay, so that is what I have for this section. We're going to wrap it up here. I will see you in the next lesson.